Okay, so getting back to the 1965 season, so you were up in the Northwest or in the Midwest, and it sounded like there was some weather that came into play.
Yes, well, I reported to Appleton, Wisconsin. Like I say, it was not too far from Milwaukee and Chicago, just North Green Bay up in that area. And, and so our schedule kind of takes us over to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Quincy, Illinois. We play in Decatur, Illinois. There's mostly a lot of Illinois places in Quad Cities, Iowa. And we were scheduled to go to Quad Cities, Iowa to play. And the Mississippi River flooded. I mean, it was a big flood there, and the games were postponed. They were moved. They had to move because you couldn't play because the water was up in the stands, at least 20 to 30 feet up in the stands. And so they gave us a neutral site that we went to. It turned out to be a real historic place in Dyersville, Iowa. I don't know what the name of the stadium was, but I want to say the Field of Dreams. But we had to reset our game. I think the Indians at the time, we played in Dyersville, Iowa, and we made that game up there. And it turned out to be today that's from the movie The Field of Dreams. I don't know if it's the exact field, but I know it was Dyersville, Iowa that I played in, and that's going to always be a historic moment for me playing in Dyersville, Iowa. And also ended up playing against a former Prince George's County athlete, Ray Miller. Ray Miller was a pitching coach for Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles. Matter of fact, I remember getting a base hit off of him, and because he was pitching, I remember getting a hit up the middle. I was having a little problem hitting, as we said, in the Midwest League. They're like 9 for 40, I believe, and one of those hits was off of him. I remember I said, I got to hit this ball back up the middle, and I remember getting at least a base hit in Dyersville, Iowa. And so that was a real tough time. I don't know how that worked out for the rest of the league, but I'm sure that the river subsided and everything, and they got to finish the season because I had moved on in June. I moved on to the Bluefield, West Virginia, to play in the rookie league there. But while I was there, I did get to go to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I got to go to Waterloo, Iowa. And Wisconsin Rapids also was in the league. Yeah, Wisconsin Rapids, I remember that. But in Waterloo, Iowa, I had one of these big froze on my head. I had a lot of hair on my head. So I said, where am I going to get a haircut? I don't know. I don't remember seeing many African-American people in these cities, especially in baseball. It's not that there's no African Americans. They're just not around baseball. They may have been there, but I said, where am I going to get a haircut? So I was just walking. We always stayed downtown when you traveled on road trips. Usually you stayed in the middle of downtown, which was nice because you could find something to eat during the day and the early evening real easy. And but I said, I'm going to this barber shop. And the guy in there, of course, the Caucasian guy, he said, I'll cut your hair for you. And I mean, I was shocked, and I let him cut it. And I was just wanting to get it off my head. And it turned out really well. So you have to give people a shot. And I don't remember any problems in the Midwest League. I mean, it was a piece of cake. I wish baseball would have been a piece of cake. So, but the racial tensions wasn't any. So I had a great time there. I just wish I could have played better baseball in the start. But the learning. Sometimes the best success is having a little rough time, because So and the Midwest League turned out to be a little rough time for me. Although I learned a lot there, and so that was the good thing about my career. I was really into the game, trying to get better at it, and try to find little things that can help me beat the other guy. So I'm definitely going to try to find out how I can get better. So. And that really taught me a lot playing in that Midwest League, because when I went later on to the Appalachian League, I was ended up being like 9th in the league in hitting there when I left there. So you go from one slump to, so it wasn't a setback. It was a setup to be better.
Right. I remember you told me you hit 320 for Bluefield.
Yeah, grade 20.
And all right-handed. So at that point, were you switch hitting earlier?
When I was in the Midwest League, I did try to switch it. I think that's why my bad start got, because I remember jumping back from some moving fastballs, and I do remember that because I remember my coach Billy DeMars, which ended up being a big league manager, big league coach for sure. Billy DeMars said, our team, y'all just going out there to break up a no-hitter. We're trying to win some games here. I think the team ended up being a lot better after I left, because they made a lot of changes in pro ball. It's a lot of turnover, especially if you start out with a team. By the time they do the draft, a lot of heads, a lot of guys move around. So, and that's what happened to me for the better. But the experience that I got there was great.
And so on these teams, were there a lot of black players, or were you one of the only black players?
Oh, in the Midwest League, I remember it was Elmore Hill was an outfielder. He was from Gastonia, North Carolina. He was an outfielder. He was there. Emmanuel Fitzgerald, he was a pitcher. He was from Blackstone, Virginia. I remember those two guys specifically was on that team. And I know when I left, it was a black player came that ended up playing a lot of years for the Baltimore Orioles, Kurt Moten. When I left out, he came in. So anybody that's into the Baltimore Oriole history know Kurt Moten. He was a small guy that could really pop that bat. He was kind of like a little Jimmy Wynn to me, a little bigger than Jimmy Wynn, but he could swing that bat. So if I'm missing anybody, I can't remember. It might have been a guy named Wilkerson that was a pitcher. So it was about 3 or 4 of us in the Midwest League. Mm-hmm. Because that's another story. Because I mean, when we first got there, we were in private homes. We staying with families, and we only stayed there for a couple of weeks. And we said we're gonna get an apartment. Mm-hmm. So we got an apartment. Somehow I think the team might have helped us get an apartment. So I remember like 4 of us was in that apartment. And I remember when we got in there, we didn't have any electricity.
Wow.
But there was electricity. This was on the second floor. We had the second floor unit. But there was a light bulb out in the hallway that we went and got an extension cord to run some electricity in there until we could get some electricity. I do remember that. That's one of those minor league things that we did to get some light in there. Okay, and I think it was only for a couple of days, so for getting some electricity. But we used the extension cord from the hallway outside the door to get some electricity.
And so, when did you play for Jim Fry? Was that in Bluefield?
Jim Fry was my manager in my first year. Yeah, he was the manager in Bluefield my first year, and a lot of these guys, they were just removed from playing themselves. After I looked them up later on in life, these guys had played and some of them didn't quite make it really well, and some did pretty good. But Jim Fry was my manager, and he was I really enjoyed playing for him. He was a big difference from my first manager. He was like night and day from Billy DeMars and Jim Fry. Not in a good way or bad way, but just their mannerisms and their demeanor was a little different. Jim Fry was a little more easygoing. Billy DeMars was really stern, I thought, and he wanted to win. That's for sure. All those guys wanted to win. They just went about it a little different. Just like when I'm coaching now, everybody's different. You just got to treat guys a little different. I think I had a little note here about that. You gotta treat them. Everybody you just can't treat everybody the same. Although you hear that sometimes that you gotta treat everybody the same, but you really can't. Because once you get to know guys, you know what you have to do a little bit. Well, the rules are rules, but you're handling the players sometimes has to be a little bit different, I think. And I think with in my first year of pro ball, I learned so much from 2 different managers. Yeah.
And then, so that year, did you play spring training or not?
Yeah. Spring training. Oh yeah. Oh boy, 1965.
65, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 65. Well, the first spring training was in Thomasville, Georgia, which is right on the border of Florida. and it was on a military base. I think it was vacant. I think it was an old military base, and I think the Orioles took over that, and they had barracks there. We used the barracks there. All the players were put up there, and we had a on-site mess hall, as the military would say. We ate and slept and did a lot of, and the baseball fields are all on the site. So if you were concerned about going into the city, which we were, we tried to go in as a group, and maybe go in and just walk around, or if you want to do a little shopping, we would go in as a group. You never would go in there by yourself as a black player. And there was a lot of African American players in camp that year. I mean, there was a lot of players. I mean, of all nationalities to me. I mean, there were just so many. I couldn't believe it was that many guys that they had signed. Of course, they had like 7 farm teams at the time.
Right,
so
a much bigger minor league.
There was a lot of farm teams. Of course, you only had one AA, one AAA club. But A-ball, you had I think we had like at least 4 A-balls, and you had a rookie league, and then you had a split season A. So you had at least like six A-ball, first year, A-ball teams. So they had there was a lot of spots open, but still they were overbooked for a signing. And I saw a lot of players that went home, and once you start seeing players getting cut, it kind of made you, it kind of perked you up a little bit too, and in that mess hall, I'm gonna keep saying mess hall, and it was a blackboard right in the front when you come in the door, and that's when they put messages up there. And usually what it meant is go to the office. If your name was on that board, you go to the office. I don't remember if it was before you ate or after you eat, but I don't think I could have ate if my name was on the board. I would have to go to the office first, So I saw a lot of names go up on that board, and we come in, and then eventually I found out. I didn't know a lot of these guys. I didn't know personally, but I got to know a lot of players, and then a lot of those guys, I found out that they were released, and my name was on that list one day. But it was on there for the coach said they thought that I wasn't hustling around, and it turned out that they had the wrong guy. They had the wrong guy, because I said that was not me. So it really kind of spruced me up a little bit. It got me because I said that could have been me, So I tried to make sure I hustled at all times, and whatever opportunity you get, you got to use it. You got to do it. I don't care what your opportunity is. If somebody else is getting 5 chances and you only get 2, you better make the most out of the 2 and do it with some enthusiasm.
And so after that spring training, you got sent out to Aberdeen, was it?
No. Well, that spring training is where I went to Midwest League,
okay.
and I went to Midwest League. Then I went to the rookie league with Jim Fry. But the next year, 1966, they changed sites. They moved to Fernandina Beach, Florida, which is just south of Jacksonville. It was up in North Florida. It was a little chilly, a little cool, and we stayed right on the beach. We had motels on the beach. It was a motel on the beach. I always remember that. And I don't know if it was 2 to room, 4 to room, but we stayed on the beach, and we had to come back in toward the city in order to practice. So our first year there was my second year of pro ball was in Fernandina Beach, Florida, and actually for the next 4 years I went to Fernandina Beach, Florida, with the Orioles. Yeah.
So 1966, so you break camp, and then you head to Aberdeen, right?
Oh no!
No?
At first, I'm trying to think. I think what I did, they sent me to the Florida State League.
Okay.
They sent me to the Florida State League with Cal Ripken. I think it was Cal Ripken. Senior was the coach, and I didn't do too bad. I don't remember, but I think it's just sometime in pro ball they got numbers and they want to shift guys around according to their experience and new guys coming in all the time. So by the time maybe when the draft came in, they sent me to the California League,
In Stockton,
which was
right?
they sent me back. They sent me to Stockton in '66, and I was hitting like 305 there. And evidently, they were just trying to get me in a spot where I can get some playing time, more playing time. And so they sent me to Stockton, and I played well there. And next thing I know, they sent me to Aberdeen, South Dakota, which was class. I think it was back in the day they called it Class C ball. It wasn't as good as the California League or the Florida State League. I think California League was kind of like a B league, and Florida State was like a D league. But all of them were, to me, I couldn't tell the difference myself. In those, like Florida State League, California League. I mean Carolina League. Carolina League is supposed to be one of the better leagues. But when I went to the California League, I played. Played against. I think Reggie Jackson was there. Oh, a lot of those Oakland A's guys were at Modesto at that time. That pitching coach for them. Oh boy, I can't even think his name. He's the pitching coach for Oakland for years, and he was a catcher. And I always talk today about catchers being some of the best players on the field. I mean, the smarter guys. I tell you, I think they're some of the best guys on that field. Those catchers, but so they sent me to Aberdeen, South Dakota, and I did not know that there was an Aberdeen, Maryland. And I've lived like 60, 70 miles from Aberdeen, Maryland. I had never heard of Aberdeen, Maryland. And that's where Cal Ripken Sr. was from, and he was my manager. Okay. Did I say Cal Ripken was in? Well, Cal Ripken was in there, so I must have had another manager in '66 in Florida State League. There's so many. I had played for so many managers. I'm trying to think who. Oh, that was Billy DeMars there.
Interesting.
In '66, Billy DeMars was the manager. And down there in Florida State League. And then I went to California League in '66 with Harry Malmberg, which ended up being he did a lot of coaching for the Red Sox. And matter of fact, he had just stopped playing baseball himself. But I think he ended up playing a little bit that season after I left. So when I went to the Aberdeen, of course, Cal Ripken Sr. was there. And that's why I brought up the Aberdeen, South Dakota. He was from Aberdeen, South Dakota. Aberdeen, Maryland.
Right.
But we never really talked about that because I still didn't know about Aberdeen, Maryland until later. And of course, I think Cal Jr. ended up coming out being our bat boy a little bit back in those days. I better check those dates and see if he was born yet. But I remember I thought his son was a bat boy for us for a while. And so we got that season started. It was kind of like a short season A. So the season started in June. So you played like a 70-game schedule. And it was like a 6-team league. Teams like Bismarck, North Dakota, Huron, South Dakota, Sioux Falls, a couple of teams, not Wisconsin Rapids, it was Duluth Superior. We played there. So it was like a 6-team league. I thought it was a pretty good league because a lot of guys came out of there and went to the big leagues. So being in South Dakota, hey, man, that was a real treat playing in the West. I don't know what you call that. That's the Northwest or what? It was like Indian country, Western country. It was, wow. It was a lot of plains there, boy. I really enjoyed the culture. I didn't have a problem with being there. And I could eat anybody's food. I was almost eating anybody's food. So,
And you swung it really well there. It looks like you might have hit 360.
Yeah. I got off to a real good start in Aberdeen, and I've had, even though it was a short season, it was about 70 games or so, something like that. I stayed hot for the whole time, and I stayed hot, and then I only batted right-handed, and back to Bluefield, I only hit right-handed in Bluefield, except for maybe one or two times, and then when I went down to Miami, I only hit right-handed. And I went to Stockton, I only hit right-handed. So then I'm in Aberdeen, so I'm hitting all right-handed again. All right-handed. I decided to just stay over there. But I was going pretty good, and I asked Cal, I said, can I hit left-handed one game? And he said, yeah, go ahead. And that first pitch, I hit a home run.
Wow.
But I batted 2 more times, and I went 0 for 2. So I had 1 for 3 in that year. So that was I hit 360 something that year, 360, and won the batting title, led the league. I tied for the league in stolen bases, and I was second in RBIs. I kind of did all. They made me the most valuable player of the league. I won the Tops Player of the Month there. A lot of guys say I should have won that for both months, but they gave it to me on the second month. I think I played better in the first month, the first month. So they gave me the Tops Player of the Month in August of 1966. But I thought July was better. I think they was combining from June to July, and I really did better. They gave it to a player that hit like a low 3. I don't know, a low 3. And I think I was hitting like 400 the first month, 4 something. So I cooled off. I kind of cooled off in the end, but they gave it to me in there. And back then they sent me a telegram saying I had won that award. The Tops Player of the Month. I got a nice Bulliver watch, which I later lost at a car wash. They stole it out my car. My fault for leaving it in there. So it was good. I was trying to think. That league was pretty good. There's some pretty good Philadelphia Philly guys come out of there, and another guy named Larry Heisel played for the Phillies. He was a pretty good outfielder. Of course, my favorite guy was Gary Nolan. He was a pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds. And Don Chaney, he was a shortstop for Cincinnati. They both played for Cincinnati. It was tough, but I remember facing a lot of sliders in that league. So it got to be sometime a little better than California League. Although it was more of a sophomore league. It wasn't it wasn't a rookie league. That's what. So you didn't go there if you was a rookie. You went there if you was like a second-year player or so. Not saying that a rookie couldn't go there, but I just remember a lot of second-year players played there. Some guys went back there. Usually you don't go back to rookie league. Rookie league is usually a one-shot deal, like Bluefield's one shot. You wouldn't go back there unless maybe you got injured or something and didn't get the time in. So it was a real good time. The only regret I had about '66 was my daughter was born. My youngest daughter, Lisa, she was born August the 14th, 1966. And back in the day, there was no such thing as that kind of maternity leave or family leave, and you just didn't go home, much. They might have let me go. I don't know, but I didn't go, and my daughter right now to this day gets on me about that, not being there with her mom when she was born. But I heard it on another show where it happened to some other players.
Interesting.
As well. They did not go home for the baby's birth. But today, that's a no-no. Everybody go home now. Ain't nobody staying. you going to see that baby born, and taking some leave. So it was a good year playing for Cal Ripken Sr. He was a great sign stealer. He really got the edge on if the catcher was tipping off his signs or the pitcher was tipping off his signs, he would try to let you know and try to see what you could do with it. And he would let me know some signs. I don't know what percentage at the time, because I remember some catchers would put this sign down too low or they'll open their legs too wide. And he read the pitcher on how they gripping the ball when they're in the windup, and he would always relay that kind of stuff to me. And I never understood it to this day in my coaching career. Guys do not want to know what the sign is. They don't want to know. And I never understood that, but that's a different animal. And with the sign stealing and stuff that's going on in the big leagues, it's still going on, but I still don't understand why some people don't want it. So I want to know when that slider coming, if I can, with that curveball, and I think that's what made me a better player, because I was able to adjust to the situation. I was really good at guessing, or I like to say educated guess in sports, and one of my biggest things was I was able to runners in scoring position, I was able to look for something other than the fastball, because that's usually what they threw. If the guy had a breaking ball or something different, they throw it. They throw it more. And if you're not a guy that can adjust off the fastball to the curveball, which is a great way to hit too, but if you can just sell out sometime and just look for a certain pitch, oh boy, you just got to keep it fair. That's all. Just got to keep it fair. And so I was really good at that, and I try to teach it to this day in coaching, but it doesn't work out too well. I try to tell my base runners to relay the sign, but nobody really wants it. They don't want to do that. So I let them do their thing, So 66 was a real learning curve for me, and the Orioles kind of thought a lot of me, because that was my first year when the season was over. We had the Florida Instructional League, which is kind of like the great Arizona Fall League now. They had the Arizona Fall League, and all your big-time players play in that Arizona Fall League. Well, we have the Florida Instructional League, which is kind of like the same thing, but it's usually not a co-op. It's usually all the Orioles. And we played in Clearwater, Florida. So after the season's over, they sent me there. So that's usually where they send their prospects, to work on some things, or to get some extra ABs, some extra work. And so I went to Florida Instructional League in '66, and played. I don't really know too much about my stats, but I know it's a lot of guys that played in the big leagues today that played there. And one of my favorite guys was playing against down there was Rod Carew, and won the batting title for like 6-7 years. And I try to tell my players today, try to watch players that play better than you. Try to see what they're doing. I mean, sometimes you can't copy everything, but you might can pick up a little something that can help you. So Florida Instruction League, I did that for like 2 months. It's usually like October, November. I think you usually back by Thanksgiving. It's like September, late September to like early mid-November, and then you come back home. Then if you were lucky enough, you went to play winter ball in Puerto Rico, Dominican or so. But I was done, came back home, went to work, and was waiting on spring training again.
Right.
So that was 1966, after a good year. Try to wait and see if they're going to send me a contract that would give me a few more dollars for this family.
Right. And you were working at Marriott that off season, right?
Marriott, I think, I did 64 going into 65. I worked Dina's Carpet Company, because I got that job from American Legion coach. So I know going into 65, I was like at Dina's. So 65, I did go to Marriott. So I kind of lose track. So Marriott Corporation, and that taught me a little something about punching clocks, a little bit more too. And I had worked a little bit at Dina's, so so I was in the workforce. So, but in '66 though, just before the season started, I had taken the government U.S. Civil Service test, for working in the government, and I passed it, and they called me to work at the Postal Service. So in '66 in February, I went to work at the post office. But it was spring training was coming, so I had to resign. I resigned. I got the job and resigned. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have enough time to get a leave of absence or something like that, or get an excuse. So I just resigned and went to play ball, and that's what happened in '66. Then I came back home. I think in '66 I came back. I think I came back. So that was Marriott before that, So in '66 I ended up coming back to the post office in the fall as a temporary clerk, a temporary Christmas help in '66, before I went back to spring training again in '67. Yeah.
And were you using wrist weights at that point yet?
Wrist weights came in because I knew I was in. I remember using those wrist weights in the Florida Instructional League. I do remember using those wrist weights because I heard Ernie Banks talking about wrist weights, the great shortstop for the Chicago Cubs, Mr. Cub, and Let's Play Two-Man. And I also ended up being in an old-timers game with Ernie Banks. down in Prince William County in Virginia, and that was a real treat right there with him, and of course some other guys like Bob Feller and Bill Pappas and Chuck Hinton, and it was so many guys there. But I got a kick out of those guys, really. So where were we on that? Oh boy, I lost my way there.
So I guess we were talking about off season. I guess heading into the 60s.
Oh, we were talking about the wrist weights.
Yeah,
we were talking about the wrist weights, and it got me on Ernie Banks. I kind of lost my way because when you talk about real baseball people back in the day, man. It just kind of threw me off talking about Ernie, and when they talk, you listen. When Mickey Mantle talk, you listen. I mean, Gas Grimsby talk, you listen. All these guys, I paid attention to them, and when he said somebody he used wrist weights to help him with his hands, and I just said I'm gonna buy them, and I still have those wrist weights today. Matter of fact, one of them is in my car right now. I like to show them to my players every now and then. Yeah.
But outside of that, people weren't really training in the off season at that point, right?
No. I don't think it came in. I think a lot of the training came in the 70s, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I know as an organization, we didn't have weight rooms. We didn't have people that was teaching you how to condition. I remember us doing jumping jacks. Some twists and turns and running backwards and, some push-ups, things like that. You did some calisthenics, as we say. And then if you knew something else, I mean, I don't remember seeing anybody that worked on anything particular. I don't know what people did in the off season. I'm sure some guys that lived in warm areas like Texas, California, Florida, I'm sure they did something to stay in better shape. Our thing was to play baseball. It wasn't that thing,
Right.
But I knew that the wrist weights would help me in my job, and I knew the weather, really from like November to like February, you're really not going to be outside much, doing any baseball in my area,
Right.
So I didn't do it. I just kind of went to spring training, and they allowed you to get in shape and minor league spring training back in the day, because spring training was like 6 to 7 weeks. And maybe the first couple weeks, they're not going to cut you. They're not going to cut you till you start playing some games and everything, unless you just was horrible, I guess. But nobody's really horrible because you were signed by a scout. When you came there, you had some kind of talent. And I remember when I first went to spring training, my catcher at Eastern High School, Mike Taylor, we thought was the best catcher in the city at the time. I took him to spring training at Fernandina Beach, and they turned him back. They wouldn't even look at him.
Wow.
Because he wasn't signed.
Yeah.
That's something just popped in my head, and they wouldn't sign him. But nobody. I guess they figured nobody signed him while he was playing. Nobody recommended him, so they didn't like him that much. But
Interesting.
I think if he was playing today, I think he would get a look. I really think so. Michael Taylor, our catcher for Eastern High School back in the day.
All right, I'm going to take a pause here.